And it's one of those things where it's almost a culture shock, but very soon they're going to, for those who are, I would say, very good at using opportunities and finding those opportunities to exploit people or to prey on the weak, you'll find those predators, wherever they're from, start to easily identify how easy it is to prey on people here in the United States. That's something that we're as a nation not ready for, and as a people we're not ready for it. So it'll be interesting, and especially when you have the government, the federal government is like, yeah, like we're going to encourage this, is what it seems like. Whether they are or they're not, it's almost incentivizing, hey, yeah, let's keep bringing them in, let's keep making more sanctuary cities and fueling the fire, whether willingly or unwillingly. In my opinion, I think it's willingly. I think there's a master plan. Imagine one day you wake up, you look at your phone, you're like, you're drinking your coffee, and you're like, holy smokes, Putin, he did it. He shot the nukes. He shot them into Ukraine. He did it. All right? And then all of a sudden your phone goes off again. You're reading all the Twitter and all the Instagram news and seeing the explosions in Kiev, and you're seeing all this stuff happen. And 30 minutes later you see, holy smokes, Iran just shot 800 missiles into Israel. They just did it. They overloaded the Iron Dome. There's tanks going up on the border. And so you're seeing all the social media posts from that, and that's happening. And let's just say the nukes went off at 9:30 in the morning, and Iran started shooting all of their missiles and started going up to the border by 10 o'clock. And then at 10:30, you get a news alert. China has done it. They're beginning the invasion of Taiwan. This is all on the same day, all synchronized, all on the same day. All of these major events happening on multiple fronts. So by 10:30, you've got, holy smokes, China's invading Taiwan. There's tons of, videos popping up of, the GoPro cameras of like guys getting blown up and ships sinking and amphibious assault, all this crazy stuff. And then 30 minutes later, there's a mass shooting in Houston, Texas. What is that? Iranian militants. Oh, there's a shooting in Denver. What? Chinese militants. There's another shooting that happened in New York City. Russian militants. Like, all of a sudden, you have this not I would say terror network, but a special operator attack from all of these other nations that launch their attacks and overwhelm all the police force, all the emergency services. Imagine what happened in Israel on October 7th, happening all over America on the same day at the same time. And so you have this synchronized event that happens in one day. How is America going to respond? How is America going to be able to react to that response? Can we recover from that response? And this is the type of thing that's made me nervous about the border, is you have to be foolish to think that if Venezuelan gangs are coming through the border, you have to be so foolish to think that Russia and China and Iran and all of our enemies are also not using the same opportunity to establish cachet points, to establish plans, to infiltrate the United States, to study our bases. I mean, we have Chinese property. China has bought farmland next to almost every major military base in the U.S. So think about that. It's scary, man. It's scary. It really is. And I don't think we're ready for it. Come from, or, as an immigrant, how I became an American. Like, they don't understand that. They're just saying, oh, I'm in here. I'm in America. All right, where's my free stuff? There is no American idea with all of these migrants coming. And I think short term, you have to ask the question, why? Why are they doing this? I think long term, it's to get rid of the idea of being an American.
All right, welcome back to the X-Ray Podcast. My name is Julio Torres, and today we have a very special guest. It is Eric from Barrel Hatchet YouTube channel. You can find them on YouTube as Barrel and Hatchet. They have a big following. I've been a fan of yours for, about a year and a half, almost 2 years.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to hear your perspective on current events and your thoughts on whether we are close or not close to a civil war in the United States. Welcome to the show.
That's a very light topic.
man, yeah, people throwing that like candy out there, like, oh man, we're
Yeah.
gonna have it in the next 5 years, and or not. But Eric, welcome to the show, man. I appreciate
Thanks,
you
man.
coming,
Thanks for having me. Very humbled.
man. You let me ask you this. The
Yeah.
first question. Let's start with Colorado. As you know, Venezuelan gangs just go into buildings, but I found out those buildings were almost like condemned, like they were
Wow.
almost about to be shut down by the government, but they came in and say, F it, we're going in, and they started like basically collecting money from the people there at the moment, kind of like extortion. You know what I mean? They're a prison gang, so they're gonna do what they gotta do to survive. So, what are your thoughts on this basically epidemic of immigrants coming and taking over?
Well, I think the biggest thing that really comes to my mind is outside of America. I had a lot of experiences, come from a military background, and we can get into that in a little bit later if you like. But I also, before I was in the military, I got to travel all over the world. My parents were actually missionaries, so I lived in China for like 3 years. Lived in Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Korea. So got to go to all these different countries, and that's before the military. And so obviously when I got to the military, they had a lot of questions asking me, "Hey, you lived all these places, and I was like, all right."
Yeah.
So had asked, answer a lot of interviews and stuff like that before I could join. But what those countries showed me is we don't understand real poverty. Like, we don't really understand on a real scale of what poverty looks like and a real meaning of struggle. Like, there are people, yes, now, especially with the fentanyl crisis and stuff, we're starting to see where people are just kind of willingly throwing their lives away, sadly. But even then, people who have addictions or whatever, they have resources that are provided there's a lot of money that goes into giving them those resources to be able to get off the street or whatever. In the rest of the world, there is such a harsh reality and a stark difference between poverty here in the US and poverty in like Malaysia or Thailand. Or even like in Burma. Like my brother, he lives in Burma. His wife is Burmese. And you want talking about poverty? The people who live on welfare here in the States are like kings over there in Burma. You pretty much are like the ruler. You're the local governor. If you like, that's how poor they are over there. And so what happens is these people who have never experienced wealth and prosperity or luxury, I would say mostly luxury, they come to America and they're like, man, this is great. I get a free phone. I get air conditioning all the time. I get electricity, never goes away, like internet. I can go to the store and buy stuff. Everybody's really nice. And it's one of those things where it's almost a culture shock, but very soon they're going to, for those who are, I would say, very good at using opportunities and finding those opportunities to exploit people or to prey on the weak, you'll find those predators, wherever they're from, start to easily identify how easy it is to prey on people here in the United States. Because we're so naive, we really are. Like if you see some of the shootings that happen down in Brazil or South America, it's like, dude, like unreal, completely different. And so I think that once they understand that, these gangs and the cartel and all of these different groups come in and understand how easy it is to pretty much take over an area, it's going to be happening across cities all across America. And I think what's going to happen is that the police departments are going to be overwhelmed with calls. So now imagine before all these gangs showed up, the police departments are always looking for more police officers, more, crimes already happening. We already have our own gangs. Now you add in a full-fledged gang force that lived all together in another country, and now they've combined, and they're like spreading very quickly. Business is very good, and they're very effective. You have all these people that are calling the police now, and it's taking more and more resources, and it's draining more and more money, and it's honestly causing people to really, have no idea about what's going to happen in their neighborhood, because it's coming not just in the city, it's going into the suburbs, it's going into neighborhoods that you're starting to see all this stuff happen. So, I've talked to some buddies of mine who are police officers, and they're like, dude, it's unreal. Like, we're seeing South American gang violence. We're seeing African, warlord style gang violence. Like, we're seeing stuff from Haiti. Like, that type of stuff, that's real, like, where they're eating people, imagine that coming here to the U.S. full scale. That's something that we're as a nation not ready for, and as a people we're not ready for it. So it'll be interesting, and especially when you have the government, the federal government is like, yeah, we're going to encourage this, is what it seems like. Whether they are or they're not, it's almost incentivizing, hey, yeah, let's keep bringing them in, let's keep making more sanctuary cities and fueling the fire, whether willingly or unwillingly. In my opinion, I think it's willingly. I think there's a master plan, but yeah, man, it is not good. I can tell you that.
Absolutely, it is not. And you're absolutely right. Just people that don't never travel or never went to a third world country. Like I went to Iraq. When I went to Iraq, I was culture shock. It was like in the scene of the movie or the movie set. Like you see the hut made of clay and straws and stuff like that, and the kids just running around in the desert. They got no buildings, they got no paved roads, they have no McDonald's, Burger Kings, and stuff that we have in the United States. And when you actually travel and see those places and come back to the States, you realize how well off we are as a country. Like, I mean, we don't have shootouts like every other day, like in Mexico, where the casualty rates, because drug cartels and the other stuff, it's like over 20,000 people a year.
Yeah.
It is insane. In the States, it's just like barely making 8,000. If you compare the entire United States. So you're absolutely right. And look now, UK, riots going on. People stabbing people in the metro, subways, malls. It is rampant. And it's because I would say, open door policy of come in and take what you want, pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's affecting everybody's life. I mean, it is unsustainable in my opinion.
Well, I mean, you got to ask yourself, and this is why there's journalists that are doing a good job of putting out this information, like Redacted on YouTube. Timcast and a lot of these other independent journalists and news Tucker Carlson and all of these other guys that are really looking for pushing out information. Even Elon Musk is talking about it. Like, and so, but it's everything is too well organized. It doesn't seem chaotic. It might seem chaotic from the outside, but from journalists who go down into the Darien Gap, they go into South America, they're like, no, somebody's paying for this. There's a very streamlined process. They're coming here, they receive instructions, here's exactly where to go, exactly what to do, exactly how you're going to do it. And somebody is funding that. Now, who is funding that? There's a lot of money sources. This is, based off of evidence from following the money. There's a lot of money sources where it's coming from China, our enemy. And so they're funding the Chinese to come in through the Darien Gap and up through the border. You have the WHO and the WEF, essentially the UN. These organizations are also funding this. So you got to ask yourself, we're looking at the symptom, which is the migrant crisis coming through the border, when we should be asking what's causing the symptom, and bringing more attention to that. Because even though people feel like, I feel like it sometimes, I'm like, well, what can I do? I keep talking about this and whatever. What's good? The good thing you can do is talk about it, and the good thing that you can do is, like it's on the show, is bring it into the light for people to see, because the one thing that I think that this unknown group who want to control the world behind the scenes through different governments, they control the banking system, they control the WHO, the UN, the tech billionaires. The one thing that they cannot control, no matter how much they've tried, is the internet. As soon as somebody does something, all of a sudden there's like 15 memes that come out making fun of them. So like they had almost gotten that, they'd almost gotten control, and then Elon Musk bought Twitter. And so now it's out of control in terms of out of their control. So, you're seeing things go viral so fast, you're seeing things get leaked, you're seeing
Right.
where, this younger generation is really connected to the internet, is now all of a sudden seeing things that 10 years ago we would have never seen because of mainstream news, and that's all we have. So it's one of those things where I think that they view the internet as a threat, and I wouldn't be surprised if one day that internet all of a sudden has a pandemic and the internet's gone. So we got to try and figure something out, maybe do a reboot, but what they produce is going to be an internet that's a lot more controlled. It boils down to control. Why is America being flooded with migrants? Why is Europe being flooded with migrants? If you want a one world system, in the end, America as an idea, which I think it's not a people, I don't think it's a nation, it's being an American is an idea. When you have an immigrant that comes into America, like my mom was an immigrant, she came in, got her green card, got her citizenship, and man, I've got a cousin, he's same thing. And he is more American than most Americans. Like it's an idea. It's the idea of paving your own way, having rights and being able to defend your rights and the rights of other people, but being proud to have that freedom, and making it in your own, or making it on your own in this world. So they have to crush that idea. We are too independent. The idea is way too independent. They want us to be, as a people, by people around the world. They want the world to be submissive, easy to control, do what you're told, don't ask questions, we know what's best for you, and that's what they want. And America as an idea stands in the way of that. So a great way to destroy America is you take the idea of being American and you make it muddied and dilute it by bringing people from all these other third world nations that have no idea what that concept means, and you infiltrate them into the societies, and then they end up taking over, and now the American idea starts to go away. And so if they didn't want the American idea to go away, then they would have allowed all these migrants to come through the proper way. Hey, go through immigration, learn English, understand American history, understand American values, get your social security number, all these things, and become an American like everybody else. But they didn't do that. They wanted them to come through the border and just flood all these cities. So now, I have a bunch of people, theoretically in my city that don't speak English, that don't know my culture, that don't know what I do or where I come from, or, as an immigrant, how I became an American. Like, they don't understand that. They're just saying, oh, I'm in here, I'm in America. All right, where's my free stuff?
Right.
There is no American idea with all of these migrants coming through. And I think short term, you have to ask the question, why? Why are they doing this? I think long term, it's to get rid of the idea of being an American.
Absolutely. There is no perfect way to, like you will mention, expedite the diluted idea of America by open the floodgates.
Yeah.
Let everybody commit at once, and instead of taking 20, 30 years by the legal process, let's make it happen in 5 years.
Yeah.
Make it happen in 10 years by letting tens of millions. It's not like 2 million people in the last 3 or 4 years. It's been more than 10 already through the process of being captured and released. Just imagine the ones that got away, the ones that didn't want to get screened, the one that they went not to the back door, to the other side. They don't want to get seen. So I talked to J.J. Carroll. He was on Redacted a couple months ago, and I had the opportunity to interview him, and that's what he told me. He told me like there is roughly 20 million people in the United States, but they just account roughly to 10. And he was there. He's like, we felt frustrated because he captured them. And then the government told him, you have to release them. And he did it day by day. Tens of thousands of people got released in the United States. Like you said, with free stuff, like free healthcare, free money, and a plane ticket wherever you want to go. And I guess that's the purpose. Dilute the idea of America in one generation, pretty much.
I mean, if you think also about this is what's a scary idea, is imagine you have 20 million migrants that come through. A majority of those migrants are men, military age male, which is a term that you obviously understood and heard from Iraq. I heard it in Afghanistan all the time, military age male, but essentially a guy who's from 19 years old to 38, maybe 40. Yeah. So that's the majority of the migrants that are coming through. And they're offering them, Congress on the Democrat side are trying to offer them, hey, you want to be a fast track to citizenship? You want to be a citizen quick? Join the military. Now, I asked myself, okay, there's a couple of reasons why they would do that. One, because the military is having recruiting issues. I think that's the least probable reason. I think that's not really their biggest concern. Either you're trying to fill the ranks of the military because there's an upcoming war that's going to be a world war that you need people for right now, or there's going to be a civil war and there's too many Americans in the military that are like, I am not shooting other Americans. Like, I'm just not doing that. Like, there's so many people in the military. I think a majority. Now, there could be, a portion, but I think a majority of them would not do that. Mostly, it's not your guys in leadership. It's your guys that are in like when I say leadership, I mean like the Pentagon. Everybody else, though, you're going to have, your soldiers are going to be loyal to their platoon sergeant, and they're going to be loyal to that company commander. They're going to be loyal to these guys because they know them. But when you have all of these migrants get drafted into the military, free meals, free money, guns, training, clothing, all this stuff, and then one day there's a civil war, now you have a military full of migrants that don't care to shoot Americans. Whatever, I'm in the military. So if you think about it from that perspective, it's a terrifying thought. Now, the chances of that happening, who knows? All we can do is speculate on why the migrants are here in the first place. And if you look at all the different avenues that things could go, it becomes a terrifying perspective. And I think the other thing is that what is probably, out of all of the things with the migrant crisis that's coming through, the most terrifying thing to me is the amount of operatives from our, nations that are our enemies, like China, Iran, Afghanistan, in my opinion, all of these countries. And now you think they're taking their special operators and they're saying, hey, go through the border. Imagine that. Imagine their version of the CIA agents, their version of special operations guys are going through the borders, and they have China's like, hey, they work with Russia, they work with Iran, and they work with Belarus and all these other countries. And China talks to Russia and Iran and says, hey, when your operatives come through, we have purchased all of this farmland. It's all private. You have caches, you have housing, you got guns, ammo, uniforms. They've already been seeing shipments of weapons from China appearing in Mexico. I'm talking military-grade weapons. So imagine this, though. Here's what's scary. There's something that's been going around on Twitter or on X. It's called Day X. So I talked about this on my podcast, and it's a very terrifying perspective. But imagine one day you wake up, you look at your phone, you're like, you're drinking your coffee, and you're like, holy smokes, Putin, he did it. He shot the nukes. He shot them into Ukraine. He did it. All right? And then all of a sudden your phone goes off again. You're reading all the Twitter and all the Instagram news and seeing the explosions in Kiev, and you're seeing all this stuff happen. And 30 minutes later, you see, holy smokes, Iran just shot 800 missiles into Israel. They just did it. They overloaded the Iron Dome. There's tanks going up on the border. And so you're seeing all the social media posts from that, and that's happening. And let's just say the nukes went off at 9:30 in the morning, and Iran started shooting all of their missiles and started going up to the border by 10 o'clock. And then at 10:30, you get a news alert. China has done it. They're beginning the invasion of Taiwan. This is all on the same day, all synchronized, all on the same day. All of these major events happening on multiple fronts. So by 10:30, you've got, holy smokes, China's invading Taiwan. There's tons of, videos popping up of, the GoPro cameras of like guys getting blown up and ships sinking and amphibious assault, all this crazy stuff. And then 30 minutes later, there's a mass shooting in Houston, Texas. What is that? Iranian militants. Oh, there's a shooting in Denver. What? Chinese militants. There's another shooting that happened in New York City. Russian militants. Like all of a sudden, you have this not I would say terror network, but a special operator attack from all of these host other nations that launch their attacks and overwhelm all the police force, all the emergency services. Imagine what happened in Israel on October 7th, happening all over America on the same day at the same time. And so you have this synchronized event that happens in one day. How is America going to respond? How is America going to be able to react to that response? Can we recover from that response? And this is the type of thing that's made me nervous about the border, is you have to be foolish to think that if Venezuelan gangs are coming through the border, you have to be so foolish to think that Russia and China and Iran and all of our enemies are also not using the same opportunity to establish cache points, to establish plans, to infiltrate the United States, to study our bases. I mean, we have Chinese property. China has bought farmland next to almost every major military base in the U.S.
That's right.
So think about that.
Those are facts.
It's scary, man. It's scary. It really is, and I don't think we're ready for it.
Man, it is. I never heard that that side, or your point of view on how they're gonna do it. But if I was their enemy, most likely that's what I would do.
Yeah.
Like that's what I would do. I will do everything at once and do not give chance. Blowing up, electrical grid. Just shut it down. Cut the cables for the internet. Basically blind the whole city. The whole state. Blind them out and create chaos. And I mean that's how we did it when we invaded Iraq.
Yeah.
For the first time. You know what I mean? We just shut down the radars, shut down the internet, shut down the power, and then we went in at dark. So if that happened in the United States, they would say your theory might happen in Christmas. Nobody paying attention to that. Like what if it happened in the holidays? People are traveling on the road. That's where the most people are on the road. Just imagine that, blowing up buildings, bridges, locking up people in the highways. It would be mass chaos. It would be crazy.
Imagine if it happened the day of the election.
I'm out of here, man.
Dude, I'm just saying, dude. Like, imagine if that happened. You have a transfer of power. You have a transfer of power. If you're looking for a target-rich environment, you have all the people going out to vote. It's...
That would be the perfect excuse to maintain the same people in power. That's one. That's a perfect excuse.
Yeah.
That's a perfect excuse.
Yeah.
And they would blame it.
They would blame it on everybody. I mean, the thing is, what's crazy is it's like, I think maybe this is a rumor, but supposedly Putin endorsed Kamala Harris.
Really?
Yeah,
Man,
because she's pretty much a communist, and so he's like,
she
yeah,
is.
yeah, here's my endorsement. You guys are
She
great.
is. She is. I
So
mean, have you seen what happened with Teen Wall's brother?
yeah, and they went for
The,
Trump.
yeah, they even took a picture of it and posted it. It is. I would put it in there. That
Yeah,
was hilarious. I watched that last night. I was like, get out of here.
yeah,
Even he called. I think he called CNN or Fox, and he stated that he haven't talked to his brother in the last 8 years.
yeah,
He have not talked to him. Even he say
dude,
his views are too liberal for him.
man, yeah. I don't know. I mean,
Imagine that. Not even your own family goes with Trump. That's a lot to say right there.
yeah, I mean, especially
That's
if
a
it's like
lot.
your own family doesn't even like you. So what makes you think that the American people are gonna like? Like that's got to say a lot when your entire family is like, yeah, he's a turd. You know?
Yeah, it is. It is crazy. It is crazy how the moments that we live in right now. It's like I think in Texas we deleted like 1,000 people that were illegals. They were in the voter rolls. They got just deleted, and I think a few other states are working on purge the voter rolls because there's a lot of people that pass away and a lot of people that no longer live in the states. So that opens a lot of opportunities for mail-in ballots
Wow.
because they would. I mean, just imagine. Just take for example a big city. They would say New York, and let's say on the voter rolls they have like 10 million people registered. But how many people move out of New York in the last 2 years?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're
Yeah.
not even updating that. So let's say 2 million people left. So you got about 7 million, 8 million people registered, but you're still mailing out those 10 million ballots or 5 million ballots. Who's gonna get them?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Somebody gonna be pencil whipping.
I wouldn't, I'm no longer surprised anymore. Like I used to
Nah,
be
me
like,
neither.
wow, that's so crazy. I can't believe that. And here's the thing is it's like, I tell people all the time, I'm like, I hope I'm wrong. But if I'm not very smart. And if I can think of something like this, and I'm guarantee you there are people who have intelligence agencies and stuff like that are our enemies that are totally thinking of something like this. They're waiting. They're all, I mean, you got to think about this. Here's what scares me. You have Putin has all of these red lines, right? Don't cross this red line. Okay, don't send Abrams. Don't send any Abrams to Ukraine. Okay, you did. Okay, okay. All right, new red line. Don't send F-16s. Don't do it. Okay, don't go into Russia. And then they invade Kursk. All right, no. And it was like, why is he not reacting? Why I don't understand. He's all these red lines are being crossed, and he's not really reacting in the way that you would think that he would react to someone's like, okay, nuclear weapon's going to happen now because they just crossed the red line. And they're in Russia, dude. They are in Russia, and he still is not reacting. It's almost like not a big deal. And so, what worries me is Iran is shot by missiles from Israel. In fact, they killed a person in their capital city, and what did they do? No response. They said, "Hey, we're going to say," but they didn't do anything. Why? Why are they not reacting? Is it because there's China and Russia and Iran are like, just wait. It's almost like you got the bully on the playground and everyone wants to go beat him up, but there's somebody that's coordinating the bully that, all the people on the playground is like, hey, if we take him together, we can beat him. Just hold on. I got the plan. Just wait. It's coming. You know what I'm saying? That's what's coming, dude.
Absolutely, and that's what I'm worried about. I mean, either that or they know something that we don't know. They know probably. It's my thinking. They know it's not United States purposely doing it. It's probably they know who is behind it, and they don't want to fall for the trap because they know if we attack or we just, let's say we invade Ukraine, that would be the trigger
Yeah.
for United States say, hey, They invade Ukraine. We have to save democracy. Let's go over there and find and kick Russia out. You know,
Yeah.
they don't want to give the United States the excuse to start another war.
Yeah.
And they just hold them back. I guess that's my thought. Hopefully, November 5th, everything just happened normal. Nothing crazy happened. And
Dude,
we have
that's 59 days from now. There's a lot of time. A lot can happen.
Kamala, she don't want to debate now. She want to pull out.
Yeah, because she
just
trash
want to
bag,
pull out.
dude. She's a trash bag.
Yeah, I see. I don't know. She is. Have you seen a video of her changing her accent when she went to like a couple places? And I saw it in X, and I would post the video so guys can watch it. But she's changing her accent. I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah, so fake.
I mean, it's so fake, and people go because they are the party. The Democrat is all about vibe. It's not about policy. It's about we are good people. We are happy people. I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Emotion over policy is crazy.
It's everything is so polarized right now, and that's what worries me about all of it. And even like, I mean, we have 59 days. You know, if I told you a month and a half ago, I was like, dude, someone's going to kill Donald Trump. What would people say? Oh my gosh, you're so overreacting. You're such a conspiracy theorist. Like, stop overreacting. You know, if I would have told you in January, I'm like, dude, check this out. Ukraine's going to invade Russia. They're going to try to go for nuclear power plants. Donald Trump's almost going to die. They're going to do an assassination attempt on him. Joe Biden's probably dead, but Kamala Harris is going to be the president-elect. I was like, I would tell you everything we have had happen so far. If I told you all these things in January, hey, I went to the future and I saw what happened in 6 months, 7 months, you'd be like, you're full of it. Like, there's no way. That's ridiculous. But it's just every time something happens, I'm like, I legitimately don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea. Like, things that I mean, the market should have popped already. We should have already had the market drop. Like, what happened with that? Like, it's still there. The bubble's still growing. Like, who knows what's going on? I just know that when things do come crashing down, it will be so bad because it's been growing and growing and growing and not popping. And it's like, you know what's funny is I can't remember who quoted this, but it was some historical figure, and it stuck with me forever. And it says that history happens slowly over time, then all at once. So, like, what it means is just essentially history is very slow. Nothing happens for many, many years, nothing significant. And then in a month, the entire world has changed. All of history has changed in a month. You know what I'm saying? Think about that. Think about like World War II. You know, how fast in 1 month we were not in a war, now we're in a war, and we're in a very heavy war in the Pacific. And or all of a sudden we're about to invade Japan, and within a week, the first atomic bomb was dropped, dude. Like, all of these things that are just crazy. History happens slowly over time and then all at once. But yeah.
It is. Yeah, it is. It is like that. I feel the same way. And that's one I want to turn this conversation into your wheelhouse. Like how we as civilians now, how we can choose the right tools to defend at least our neighborhoods, our property. What we can do as individual level to contribute to to prevent this to happen, because it's like in the military, they teach you individual tasks and then you go to the collective and then you go bigger and bigger. So what we can do in our level to basically protect our family and our property, because once we get that dialed down, and then we can build a community, our neighbors and our friends, and whatnot, we can expand from there. What we can do. I mean, I know weapons are still readily available in the United States, and I see a post a few days ago saying that United States owns 46% of the all the weapons in circulation in in the planet,
Yeah.
which is 1 billion. So basically, we own like 460 million weapons. So that's a good news, at least.
We need to
But
bump those numbers up, actually.
yeah, that's what my first thought is like. Well, man, we have to be on the 600
Yeah,
600
yeah,
million.
yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? So
Yeah.
what we can do, because that's your wheelhouse. I mean, I know you do training, all that stuff. What we can
Yeah.
do?
So, I mean, to be honest, I think that we did this in the military, and it was everybody has SMEs. Remember, you got your subject matter expert, right? Like, hey, this guy, he went to this school. He's a subject matter expert on this. He's running training for this type of topic. This guy's this much subject matter expert over here. So when you do unit training, you develop your unit training plan. You kind of use everybody as a collective and the strengths of everybody to be able to develop a good training plan for the entire unit. So it's essentially the same thing that I think that veterans have a big role to play because we have that structure that the military taught about getting people from all walks of life, putting them in one spot and making them work together. So we as veterans, we know how to do that. The problem is that we don't. We don't do that. You know why? Because no one's forcing us to do it. We have to do it on our own. And so, in the military, you're forced to get along with people. Like, you just got to do it. Sorry, you're in the unit together. Like, you're in the foxhole together. So there's no choice. Whereas here, among society, we have a choice. And I think that one of the things that a lot of veterans do, myself included at the time, is we fall prey to only connecting with other veterans and saying, hey, here's our clique. Remember, like in the military, even within units, you had your cliques, right? So we have our clique. Everybody else is pushed out. When, you look at the people that are in your neighborhood, you might have, let's just say, for example, you guys had to lock your neighborhood down and you had a big meeting and you're like, all right, what do you do? Well, I'm a plumber and I'm an electrician. I'm a doctor or I'm a nurse or I'm a dentist. Like, these are all important roles. Like, let's just say if society collapses tomorrow and you had to rebuild society, you can't do it with a bunch of vets. The vets are a huge part of that. But veterans have the skill set to be able to bring people together to say, hey, let's figure out what your strong suit is and how as a collective we can kind of rebuild back. And so I think that's the one thing that, my channel has really been pushing to do is essentially I find something to talk about that's something like, guns or training, things of that nature, that gets your interest to get you to start thinking in the end, though, about community. Because, you're not going to last very long if you're holed up in a cabin somewhere in the mountains by yourself. Because eventually someone's going to find out that you got a cabin. And if you have no community, then you're a target. So it's one of those things that as a collective, we can't do it alone. We try, we want to live life alone. Society and social media and all of these things have made us really good at living alone and being alone. In fact, we are so alone that there's a veteran suicide epidemic right now, and it's the worst it's ever been, So we need to start branching out and talking to your neighbors, talking to people in your church, talking to people at work, and just being like, hey man, like, what do you like to do? Maybe you can connect over something. Maybe you both like fishing, and your buddy that likes fishing is a dentist, but he's never shot a gun. Cool, you shot guns. Hey man, I'm not really good at fishing, so you teach me fishing, and I'll teach you how to shoot guns. Or you're a carpenter, you teach me some carpenter skills, and I'll help on some projects, and I'll teach you to do this, whatever it is. But it goes back to community. We need that. We used to have that in America. We used to have communities where, people would go out west on wagons together. Multiple families, probably like 100 families would go out west, and they'd go out and they'd build a town in the middle of nowhere and make it happen. We've lost that because we've lost a sense of community, and we've lost all the skill sets to be able to contribute to that community, like social skills and talking to people and having conversations and having respect for each other's beliefs or each other's political stances. Things have gotten so polarized because the powers that be want you to be separate. They don't want you to have a community, because if you have a community, you're a lot harder to control. They want you separate, individualized, so that way they can individually control each and every one of us. So it's counterculture, you know. But that is your starting point. Is we have to have community to be able to make things happen.
Yeah, that's what I like from your channel, because it's so you bring so many points that actually are relevant to what's going on right now. I mean, like you bring like what weapon do you have, and what you can use it for, and also you give your own opinion based on experience about what if the shit hit the fence. Where do you go? What are your resources you have? And a lot of people don't think. They think in the moment, but they don't think what happened if everything goes to shit and what I have is going to last me a week. What's my next 5 steps? Where I should go next? Should I go to the woods? Should I contact my neighbor? Should I believe or trust my neighbor? Because that's like you're saying, like nowadays people became so individualized, they not even know who their neighbor is nowadays. And I mean, you can barely know, oh, I see my neighbor, he drive a white car, that's it. They don't know their names. You know what I mean? And when the shit hit the fans, people would become defensive. It's like that movie. Have you seen the movie of produced by Obama?
Oh, yeah.
Even
the movie sucks, but yeah, it's
that movie sucks. But it kind of gave a realistic perspective about, even though he know the neighbor, when the shit hit the fans, nobody cares.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's a sad reality. You might know your neighbor, you might talk to him, you might barbecue, you break bread and you eat on his house or whatever. And when the shit hit the fans, basically he could be your enemy. And that's a sad thing. You know what I mean? Because people do not build trust and confidence with their neighbors. And that's our job to do.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like a lost art of commuting. I mean, people, come together.
I mean, I think it's one of the things that, my pastor at church, he challenged us, and we're doing this whole thing about connecting, and it's also about, we're learning about community building. And my wife and I, we were like, you know what, we're going to do that this month. We're going to invite 3 families over to our house for dinner. But how often do we have people over for dinner? No cell phones, no TV, just hang out, eat dinner, and talk. And so he kind of challenged the church and us, and I was like, man, let's do that. So we were like, all right, in September, we're inviting 3 families over. And then the next week, we'll have 4 families over, on different nights, and just start connecting with people. And then once you establish the relationship, then you can talk about, hey, let's make a plan, And I'm not talking about a plan that's like 2 months. Where do you want to be in 5 years? If everything goes away, how do you get your children to survive for the next 5 years? Where do I want to be? And just like on the military side, I'm going to backwards plan from where I want to be. So 5 years from now, okay, I want this society, I want this. Okay, what do I got to do to get there? Let's backwards plan. And the time to do that is now. Now is the time. You're not starving to death. You're not worried about someone breaking into your house and killing you. Outside of in a military war zone, you're not worried about if your electricity is going to stay on. You're not worried about water. You have the luxuries and the time to do it now. But I also get it too, where it's like everything can get so overwhelming where you're just like, I'm just going to pretend like none of this is happening, because it's scary. It really is. But it doesn't have to be scary if you're doing it together. In fact, it gives you more security and comfort knowing that peace of mind that you at least have a plan. It may not be the best plan, but it's a plan. It's something. And we can flex the plan. That's fine. The plan can change, but you got to have something.
It is. You got to start somewhere. I started, when I moved here, that's when I started my plan. And right now, I'm not, I would say 100% ready. But I could say from what I planned and foreseen for the next 2 years, I'm like 45%.
Nice.
I'm getting there. Every month, I tell my wife, every month I'm gonna buy something that I need for later. Every month. Like you said, it doesn't have to be like, hey, I wanna be in 5 years, I wanna have this and spend $8,000 getting all that gear, whatever. Not
Yeah.
it's not realistic, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
me, I'm just like little by little buying stuff,
Yeah.
batteries, or buying this, or buying food, or buying ammunition, stuff like little by little. I'm purchasing every month. Just find an article this cheap enough so I can buy 3 or 4 boxes of whatever. You know what I mean? And I don't want to spend an arm and a leg buying stuff left and right, and have a bunch of stuff in my house because my wife would go crazy.
Yeah.
But I started planning. That's the best way to start. Like first aid kits. That's very important. People don't think about that. Tourniquets, gauze, a trauma kit, or bleeding kit, or stuff like that that we supposed to have firsthand. And if you go probably to the neighbor's house, it's like, do you have Band-Aids? They probably don't even have Band-Aids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's that bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So people can go to Amazon and just buy a pack of 4 tourniquets for about $20. Cheap
Yeah.
as hell.
Yeah,
No,
and
I mean,
make
so
sure
you
you
got-
make sure you buy the real ones, the North American ones. There's have you seen the video in Ukraine of there's a GoPro camera and it's a Ukrainian medic and he goes and he puts a tourniquet on this guy and as he's putting it on, it breaks. And this guy's bleeding
Wow.
out. Like he's bleeding out. So essentially there's a lot of Chinese tourniquets that got sent over there and they're not to quality. So make sure you buy North American rescue tourniquets that are real. But yeah, man, it's like nobody thinks about that stuff. I mean, it's one of those things where like when I go to the range and we have training, I'll be doing class and someone gets like a cut or something like that. And I was like, hey, does anybody have a Band-Aid? No, everybody's got tourniquets and gauze. So I'm like,
Right.
we also got to think about the small things too. So like, we started carrying and I would usually bring like a Band-Aid package, and just for those small cuts and bruises. But yeah, it goes back to just thinking about that stuff. Like, it's always better to have a plan. It's always more securing to also have a plan with other people.
Right.
So what you only have 45%, but if you have a community, maybe the rest of that percentage is being made up by the rest of your community. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Absolutely.
so the other thing that was kind of a disturbing thing to think about was my buddy had told me, he's like, hey, have you ever done this drill before? And I was like, no. And he's like, take 10 minutes and how much stuff can you grab? Like nuclear weapons hitting MacDill Air Force Base, or, something's happening, there's gunshots going off. You got 10 minutes to grab what you need and get out of the house. Do you know what you're grabbing? Do you know what you're getting? Is it organized to grab as much as you can in that 10 minutes? And I was like, dang, like everything's kind of spread out. I don't really have anything organized in that way. Like, so in 10 minutes, can you grab all the stuff that you need to get out of there?
Wow. Never thought about that. That's an eye opener. For me, shoot, when I go to the range, it takes me about 15 minutes to put all my stuff in the truck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It takes forever. I'm like, I'm going to run here, there, going to my safe, going back to the truck, and my wife is like, don't you leave already? I'm like, I'm still getting stuff around. I got my ear pearls and all the stuff laying everywhere. But that's a good drill to have. I mean, have a plan or your family involved, and like, hey, you grab this and you grab that, and kind of alleviate the weight on
just make it's like just make a speedball essentially of all the stuff you need, so
yeah, that's good, man. That's good. I never thought about that.
So but yeah, man, it's all this stuff, like I've been always a gear queer. I've always been fascinated with gear and guns and all this stuff. And so it's been easy for me to kind of get into all this stuff. But sometimes there's people who really aren't that interested in all the gear, or maybe they're not interested in the guns. But one of the things that you can do to kind of get yourself interested is like buy this stuff and then find something within the preparedness space that does interest you. So if it's like, hey, I actually like the process of canning food and, buying like tent stuff, like tents and, the solar panel to charge my equipment, and then take some of that stuff and go camping with the family. Like make a fun day of it where you learn how to use all this equipment that you bought and you use it when you're camping, like on a vacation. So you can do things like that to kind of do like a field exercise with your family. and get to learn and understand how to use all the gear that you have and actually put it to use, because that's how we always figured it out in the military. You know, like, all right, we're doing a field exercise, we're gonna be out there for a freaking week, and you figure out what works, what doesn't work, what you need, what you don't need, and all that stuff.
Right.
So
Yeah, that's where everything breaks.
Yeah.
At the first day of the field exercise, everything breaks. Everything. Man, you bring me back memories about winter training. Oh, we're gonna be a cold weather training. I'm like, I know the heater's gonna break. And it will last 16 hours into the field exercise, and it breaks for the entire week. So you're there suffering. Yeah, it's freezing, but it's a good training. You get used to it. But Eric, I want to turn the conversation to your training. What kind of training do you do with Barrel Hatchet?
So I do pistol. All of my training is performance based. So it's not tactics. I don't teach tactics. I know tactics, but I don't teach them. And there's a whole reason why for that. But I just really enjoy the performance-based training, meaning shooting fast, shooting accurate. And so just really working on your form as a shooter. Just like you go to the gym, you try to perfect your form with your personal trainer. Same type thing. I want you to get rid of bad habits. I want you to shoot faster. I want you to be more confident. I want you to be more capable, a lot more safe when you're shooting. So we have pistol classes, which is called Contender Pistol, which it's just everything is from, outside the waistband holster. And it's all the fundamental stuff. But, sometimes I get guys that are kind of newer to pistol or never taken a class before. And then I get guys that have, they go to classes all the time and they shoot thousands of rounds a year. So it's fun, depending on how good the class is will dictate how much information I'll put onto the class. But every class is different because I'm always learning myself. So as I learn something new or a better way to do something, I'll add that into the curriculum. Like, hey, let's change it up a little bit. It's always evolving. So I do Contender Pistol, Contender Carbine, which is just your rifle fundamentals. But like one of the big things I teach in that class is malfunctions. Like how do you clear malfunctions under stress? Like you got to get that thing up now. Reloads. My big thing is rifle carry. So like how do I carry the rifle without flagging anybody? Like not even if I'm shooting. Like if I'm just standing around, I want to have my rifle secure and carry it like I know what I'm doing without flagging somebody, or I turn around to talk to somebody, or I'm bending down to pick something up. How do I not flag it? So I'm really big on rifle carries and footwork, movement. It's a good time. But my other classes is the 2-day scope carbine. So it's taking your AR-15 or your battle rifle platform, and we stretch it from 100 to 700 yards, and showing people how to shoot distance with their carbine. I think back to Afghanistan, all of our engagement distances, man, were like 300 and 400 yards. Like everything was super far away. So we just call airstrikes on it, but that's what was the reality of it. And so if you think about here in the States, you're probably going to see a lot more distance because we have a culture of shooting distance. All your hunters use scopes, like all of your people in the NRA, like everybody's used to shooting at small targets and actually has an understanding of how to shoot. So if I can kill somebody from 300 yards away and not have to get closer to them, I'm going to take that opportunity. So 2-day scope carbine really helps you to build your confidence in shooting distant targets. And then I have a night vision class. So I have an alpha class and a bravo class. And that one's even still, it's performance based. I'm not teaching you night vision tactics. I'm not teaching you room clearing under nods. It's all based. It's literally like when I went into that night vision space and I was like, man, I want to build a class. And I was hearing feedback from all my students like, dude, you should teach a night vision class. Cause from where I came from, I was always under nods, always. And so I was like, okay, yeah, sure. I mean, I'm sure there's great curriculum, and there's a lot of great courses out there. So if you're looking for night vision, there's tons of great courses out there. But there were some things that I was like, it's interesting that this doesn't exist. One of those things that we experienced in the military that is super practical is everybody, when they put on night vision, they want to immediately go start shooting. And I'm like, dude, in the real world, that is 1% of what you're going to be doing under night vision. Under night vision, you're going to be walking in the woods, getting grabbed by sticks. You're going to be freaking trying to find something you dropped on the ground. You're not allowed to use a red light. Like, how do you do that? How do you run your night vision to do normal tasks? We walk a total of 2 miles usually in the Alpha course through the woods. So, like, people get to learn how to walk under night vision, adjust it on the fly. And then while you're on your walk, we actually have OPT4 looking for you. So we learn how to hide from night vision, the limitations, how easy it is to defeat night vision with white light. It's pretty easy. But also how incredible night vision can be if you have it. So understanding the pros and cons, and we practice that. And we do some shooting, but the Bravo course is where it's almost all shooting. Like, it's just tons of shooting, ways to mark with laser, shooting through the optic, running pistol drills. Like, that's the shooting course. So I usually make people, if you've never done Alpha, you have to go through Alpha in order to do Bravo. Unless you're like male guys and you've been under nods, you're law enforcement, and you've been using night vision for a long time, then usually I'll be like, hey, you can go to the shooting portion. But yeah, man, it's crazy. I mean, we had one time, and actually this is something I learned on the mill side. We were doing an ambush, and we were working on our ambush training. And, right now, at my unit, I'm still actually in the Air National Guard, but we're really big focus is on recon. So we get inserted, everybody's ghillied up. Everybody's got all their ghillie suits on and face paint, and we're super sneaky. So we insert maybe like 3 miles away, and we walk. And this is in the mountains of North Carolina. So we're walking, stealthy. Nobody could see us. We did it perfect. It started getting dark on our insert, so we did it under nods, super quiet. I physically set everybody in their ambush position, and we were supposed to ambush this convoy that was coming through. And we had sim rounds, so we're like, everybody's amped up. Like, we walked all this distance, we're going to shoot somebody with some sim rounds. So, set out the Claymore, all of these things. Humvee comes down, and it's one of the guys who came from a really prestigious unit that was at our unit that was running the training for us. And he comes down the Humvee. Now, mind you, OPT4 has no idea where the ambush location is in the training area. They just know it's somewhere along their route. So he's driving, and I have the ambush set up on a turn, so that way he has to slow down to be able to get the turn. Perfect ambush spot, right? L-shaped ambush. He hits RL, hits that corner, and immediately accelerates out of the ambush zone where we were too late. Like, he freaking sped through it, which is what you're supposed to do. You just speed through the ambush zone. So we're all mad because we walked all this time, and it was perfect. And we're like, what did we do wrong? And a lot of guys were like, oh, man, OPT4 knew. They knew that we were there, blah, blah, blah. They cheated. And this is a lesson that I bring in my night vision class. But he said, in the feedback during the AAR, he said, hey, when I drove down, I could see 16 sets of eyes watching me because the headlights reflected off the night vision. And so he saw all the glare and just, accelerated out of the ambush zone.
Yeah, there were no raccoons. They're just...
Yeah, it was all of us with our because they reflected. Yeah, so even though we were seeing, he could see the glare off the goggles.
Right.
And so, now I teach that in class. I'm like, hey, if you see a headlight, look away just for a second so it doesn't glare right on your goggles.
That's a good training. I mean, do they use honeycombs on night visions, or they don't?
They do. It's like an iris, so it's like if you look at a camera lens, you know how it's like this.
Yeah, the aperture.
The aperture. They have those. 100 Concepts makes a night vision aperture. It's a little bit to kind of get on there, but it is a good option. But it is to kind of prevent that glare, and it's a real thing. The problem is you, as soon as it gets too dark, like if you have a zero illumined night, no moonlight, you have to flip them up because you don't have enough light coming in. So you essentially still have to expose that glass at some point, depending on how much aluminum you have. So it's still good practice to never look at the light, just like Bug's Life. Don't look at the light, Jimmy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good advice. That's pretty good. So
Yeah.
that's what I like from your channel. I mean, your perspective is pretty spot on.
Yeah.
And that's what I like. My last question for you would be, what is your carry, your everyday carry?
So it depends. I've got two different carry pistols. One of them is my M&P Compact 2.0. So it's like a Glock 19, but it's M&P. I used to shoot Glocks, and ended up switching over to M&P because of the metal lower. And then when I'm feeling very lazy, I carry a Smith & Wesson 22 revolver. And it's really lightweight. And in Florida, it's so hot. So if I'm going to Publix or the store, I'm like, man, I have my my Sophies on. I'm like, I'll just take this revolver. Probably not the best answer, but if I'm feeling lazy, it's nice. It shoots 22 Magnum, so it's not just standard long rifle. It's 22 Magnum, and it's super light. Like my cell phone's actually heavier than the revolver, but yeah, it's nice, dude. So that's my everyday carry, man, and I'm pretty basic. If I go to a function, I'll usually carry like an MP5 or something like that. That's a pistol in a bag, but usually I just carry maybe one extra mag. I don't carry it in my pocket. I usually have in like a backpack. I usually carry fanny pack everywhere, so I have it in a fanny pack. And then I carry like a tourniquet, something like that, small tourniquet. So nothing crazy, A lot of stuff goes in the fanny pack. I used to carry a lot more, but I don't know. And that goes back to that thing. It's just like, it's not the right answer. A lot of it's just like, sometimes I'm just feeling lazy and I don't carry what I need. But on some days where I'm like, I don't feel like carrying that, I'll stop at the door and I'm like, but what if today is the day? The day I don't bring anything is the day that, and so I'll guilt trip myself into bringing all this crap. So, yeah, I guess be vigilant on that. But yeah,
That's pretty good. Hey, before we close the show, where people can find you to do your training. Anyway, I'm gonna post the video. I'm gonna post a screenshot of your webpage. But how can people find you? You live in Florida right now. That's what you mentioned.
Yeah, I do. So I live in Central Florida. So just I'm east of MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa. So near Tampa and Orlando.
All right. For those out there in Tampa area, you want to go training. So you know where to go now. I'm gonna leave everything on the link on the description down below. His webpage, his YouTube channel. Also, you run your own podcast in a different channel, or?
Yeah, so my podcast is on Spotify. It's called Hatchet Cast Podcast. It's doing pretty good. We talk about same thing, current events. I talk about scripture topics. There's and maybe that's something that we can on the next episode. If you have me back, I'll tell you my backstory and kind of my story and in life. It kind of led me to where I'm at today. But we talk about definitely. Like spiritual topics as a warrior and what that means and having that warrior soul. We talk about that a lot. And we also talk about like weird stuff like UFOs and giants and all that craziness.
That's my wheelhouse. I like that stuff. Yeah, I like myself. Well, coming from Puerto Rico, I got weird stories, but that's for another channel.
Maybe I got to have you on my show, dude.
I got some weird story. Just to give you a preview, you remember back in I don't know how old you were, but 1889, Hurricane Hugo went to Puerto Rico, entered the southeast of the Puerto Rico town called Fajardo, and basically ran through diagonally from northeast to northwest.
Wow.
It was like, boom, like diagonally.
That's strange.
And it stayed over 17 hours running through the path. It was crazy. But in the middle of it, our town, the eye of the hurricane passed through my town. And I was a little kid. I was 10 years old. So my dad was building our house in Puerto Rico. I used to live in a little shack, wooden shack, back in the 80s. So my dad was building a concrete house, cinder blocks and everything. So it was like almost halfway, 3/4 done. And the only thing that has left was the windows to be put on in the house.
Wow.
So my dad boarded up all the windows before the hurricane came in, and we moved to the concrete house, cinder block. So I was there, and it was dark. It was almost 10 p.m. and everything went quiet. So I was like, oh, the hurricane passed, so I'm good. So I started peeking through the panels, through the board, through the walls, little cracks, and I saw a light. It was pitch black, and I saw searching lights.
What?
And I was like, what? And I tried to look up, but it was so thin.
Yeah.
Between the boards or the wood, it was so thin. I was starting to peeking through, and I couldn't go out because my dad locked the door. So he's like, you're not going out. So I was a little kid just going through every room, trying to find a crack and trying to see what was that. And I just see searching lights. And where we used to live, it's a mountain, like 400 yards to the west of my house was a big mountain. So I saw the mountain, and I saw the light looking through the mountains, and I saw a big shadow, slow as hell, like almost stand still.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Dude, how big was the shadow, do you think, if you had to give it a reference?
Bro, it was a triangular shape, and it happened in 1880. It happened in 1889, and I wasn't the only one. They did a UFO reporter came to my house because I called. Back then, there used to be a radio station talk about UFOs, UFOs and all that stuff. And I called, and the guy came in with another guy from the next neighborhood behind the mountains, and he saw the same shit.
Wow.
They came into my house. He called me back then. We got landlines. And I called. They said, hey, I saw this, and that at X time. And the investigator's reporter came into my house. And I told him, like, hey, I saw the light. It came from east to west. And I saw it. And I told him the shape, the lights. They were white.
So was the shadow, it was a triangle shape, which is very typical.
I saw it pointed. I pointed shape. Because my house was oriented facing south.
Yeah.
To Puerto Rico. So the back of the house was facing north.
Right.
So when I saw it, I was like facing to the west of my house. Mm-hmm. Where the kitchen is, it's a big window. So I was looking through the board, looking up, tried to look up. And I told him, like, hey, it was moving east to west, very slow. And it was like searching lights, bunch of searching lights. White.
Now, were the lights coming out from underneath of it, or you just saw it on the ground, the lights?
I just saw on the ground. I just saw the light. And I thought, my naive thoughts, I was 10 years old. I was like, damn, it's a helicopter going around?
Right.
Was there any noise? There. No.
Dude.
It was crazy. I will try to find for you and send it to you, the report of it.
Yeah,
I would look it up and if I find it, it was over 30 years ago. But if I find it, I would send it. It was crazy. It's a lot of people saw it, and I thought it was crazy myself. It's like 10 years old, man. I was 10 years old. I couldn't believe it.
So real quick, there's two crazy things that. Well, one, you were talking about Puerto Rico, and you talk about a hurricane. Do you remember the tsunami that hit Malaysia and Thailand and Indonesia in 2004?
Yes, I remember that. It
killed like 600,000 people died.
Yeah, I remember that.
I was in Malaysia when that happened.
No freaking way.
Yeah, I actually, I was in the capital of Malaysia. I can't remember the name of it, but I was there. I was supposed to go with my friends to this other side of the island. And it was around Christmas time, and I was like, nah, I'm just gonna stay home with mom and dad and just hang out. And that island, after the tsunami hit, it was like they had a satellite image, and it was like, populated, and then next to it was just a sandy beach, like it was just gone. Like I remember seeing like pictures of like bodies, like 300 bodies in an alleyway that got washed into one section. Like it was bad, dude. So yeah, that was crazy. But I saw a UFO in 2011. Yeah, 2011. I saw a UFO in Afghanistan.
What?
We were out in, gosh, where was it? Not Spin Boldak. It was out. It was down south, but it was in RC South. I can't remember the exact fob. It was like a cop, super small. And I see like one of the guys is like, "Hey," somebody from the little talk was like, "Hey man, go up on the HESCO barrier. I see a light on this, on the ridge over there." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, check it out." So I go there, I run my tent, I grab my nods, and I go up and on the HESCOs, and I'm like looking, and I'm like, dude, there's a legit like bright light that's sitting. I thought they were about to send a patrol out because they thought it was somebody like maybe, with a ICOM or frickin' radio or whatever trying to spot, who knows. But I was like, that's so weird. Like, the light wasn't very bright to the naked eye, but under night vision it was very bright. And so we see this light and we're like asking each other like, what the heck is that? And all of a sudden this light sitting on this ridge goes, just shoots off in the sky.
No
Gone.
way.
Yeah. It was crazy.
I'm
So
telling you,
strange.
it is when you see something like that, if you haven't experienced, it is so weird feeling afterwards. After you seen it, it's like, did I really saw what I saw?
Yeah. You feel crazy.
Or was on my mind making stuff up? You know what I mean? That's what I felt when I was a little kid, man. I couldn't sleep thinking about
dude,
it. Because
I'd
I
be
was
terrified.
like, did my mind make that up? Because, mind playing tricks. When I went to Iraq, I didn't go to Afghanistan though. I went to Iraq 2003 when we first invaded. And at night, I mean, I've been on guard. It's pitch black. Your mind start making stuff up. I mean, like you start hearing stuff that you ain't supposed to be hearing, and when you look, you just see your head playing tricks. But yeah, man, it feels weird after you see something like that. You feel weird for a minute. Because you question yourself, like, did I really saw that, or was just making stuff up?
Dude, I can't imagine seeing a large craft that made no noise. That would freak me out.
It wasn't an eye in a hurricane, because when everything, you live in Florida, that well. Or in a hurricane eye, the center, everything goes quiet. You don't hear nothing.
That's crazy. Yeah, it's dead. It's like there's no wind.
It's no wind. It's like you think the hurricane's already passed, but it didn't. It was quiet for a few hours, but it just like quietly, man, no noise, nothing but searching lights. But I couldn't see it. Like my dad didn't let me go out, but I couldn't see it. I just seen. From what I saw, it was like from board to board, 4x8 board. It was like about less than the half an inch, because you have to leave some breathing room for the air. If not, it would break the 4x4s. But I was like, damn, that's crazy,
dude.
It was so. I don't know the altitude, but the lights were real bright. I mean, daylight bright.
Wow.
Daylight bright. I mean, you could see everything like daylight. And I thought it was a helicopter flying low, but I couldn't hear nothing. I just like.
What do you think it was looking for?
I don't know. And it's been from what I read past, years past. From what I read, it's like UFOs. I guess they like to linger in atmospheric phenomena. They just like, I guess they use it for clocking. Like they can go and see up close without getting noticed. I guess. Wow. I don't know. But
that's genius.
It's weird. It was weird. I was trying to find the report on it. Happened September 1889, I believe, when Hurricane Hugo came to Puerto Rico. I think it was September 1889. Man, way back, man. Way back.
That's crazy.
Man, but, hey, Eric, I really appreciate your time. If you want to find out more about Eric, please, I will link everything down in the description. Eric, thank you so much. We gotta do another.
Dude, absolutely.
We gotta rerun this. So hopefully, I would come with proof that happened.
Nice.
Yeah. I like to validate my point. Sometimes you'd be like, hey, this is the link,
The evidence, yeah,
the evidence. So people be like, oh, that shit happened for reals.
Yeah. That's
Hey,
awesome.
thank you so much. And
Thanks,
if you
man.
haven't subscribed to his channel, please go subscribe and just subscribe to mine. That helped me a lot, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you to the next one.